podium.
Jonathan, do we got a clicker? All right, we just gotta put, go ahead.
Jonathan can click it.
Or you can tell me.
Before you get started, Mr. Zanoni did provide us with handouts that we can follow. He provided us with handouts.
There is a handout that I put in front of you, so you can follow along. Sometimes it's a little easier. We're going to continue this. Your new board president, Tracy, noticed that some of my presentations said, let's do that. So we're going to do that in our future presentation.
Oh, okay, great.
And that'll be a nice way for you to follow along, a little quick, easier, rather than looking at and also you can follow and ask questions as you go along. First of all, before I get started, I do want to thank the board for letting me come today. This is an exciting project, and we're now getting into a point in time where you're probably going to see a lot more of me. And also, Doug Myers from our office is here. Doug will also be participating as we kind of go along, because we're now starting to build things. And there's a couple of things I'd like to talk to you about today. I'd like to first start out is segment 2, which the voters of the district approved our money, and everybody's asking me, when are we going to get started? We're going to talk about that today. And the second, I want to talk to you about the new elementary school status, and we feel very strongly that you as a board should be informed as we go along if there's any issues, and we do have slight issues, but we do have a plan that's manageable. But we do want to make sure that you're informed well before you're asked to do anything in those issues. So that's why we're here today. Segment 2, everyone's been asking why we haven't started, and let me explain why. And this has been a little bit frustrating for our team and also for the administrative team. The state of Ohio, as you know, co-funds our budget. They don't co-fund much, but they are co-funding $12 million, which is pretty significant. And what I mean by $12 million, that's segment 2. Segment 1 for the Randall School, they're co-funding $8 million. So the total is over $20 million that are going to be co-funded. And one of the things that's very important, but I put in front of you a copy of my presentation, so this way you can follow along also as we go.
Thank you.
Thank you. But what's critical is the state of Ohio has the Ohio School Facilities Commission. They need to approve that we're in the program. And we got our money. The district voters gave us $68 million. But unfortunately, there has been a delay in the state of going in front of the commission. There are two reasons. One is there's been a change of administration. So all the commission members, there's only 3, are just being selected right now. They just got on the board. They're new. They want to learn about how they should handle. And then also there's been a hiccup in terms of access to the state funding, which we were aware of. They did give us information. And we as a district have been speaking with them since December. We spoke with them in December. We spoke to them in December, we spoke to them in January, and we spoke to them in February. So we've been constantly on them to say, when are we going to start? And what happened is, because of that, if you can go to the next slide, we were finally informed by the state that the approval will come at the commission in July of this year. And so that's the good news. We're finally getting on their commission, having the commission approve us. But by doing that, you as a board will also receive what is called a notice of conditional agreement. That's our agreement with the state to do our project. It says we have our money, they have their money, and we need to do that prior to June 14th. Tentatively, we see the May 14th board meeting. The board, you will be asked to approve this NOCA package. Fortunately, because we have enough time, we'll be able to get that package to you well in advance for your review. And I must apologize when we talk about this RFP.
and I'll explain why we sort of threw that on you at very short notice, and I do apologize for that.
It's the May 15th.
Yes, the May 15th. The May 15th board meeting. We may do it earlier if we get the material earlier, but certainly we want to make sure you as a board. You had a very similar package on the Randallwood project. On the Randallwood project, we had, it's called also NOCA project, NOCA, which Notice Conditional Approval, which you did approve for that project. This is for the next phase, which is the new middle school, high school, plus all the associated pieces. So one of the things that really has been frustrating is because we're delayed till July, that means we won't be able to select an architect and construction manager to start the design process, and you're familiar, it's a year process before we put a shovel in the ground until August and September. We said to the state, you know, this is really delaying our Segment 2 project, what we've told the voters. We said we're gonna get started now, and could be a delay of about 6 months. Well, we've got, through our discussions with the state, and if you can go to the next slide, we were able to work out a way to start our project now prior to commission approval. And they've been really working with us. We've been, I will tell you this, we keep asking them and making sure that they don't forget about us. And what happened was they've allowed us, one of the key elements that the architect does at the beginning of a project, God bless you, is what we call programming and visioning. The program is the design, is setting up all the spaces that would be needed in the building. Well, when we talked to them, we said, look, if we waited till next fall, that means, or even if we could start during the summer, we won't have our staff here in town. They'll all be, you know, summer vacations. It's very hard to get people. We want to get started now in April and May to have all the interviews of all the necessary staff of the district. And so they came back to us and said, we will allow you to select a visioning programming consultant as long as it's one that's been pre-qualified, which they have. And they've given us a list, and I'll go through that list in a moment. And what they have, if you can just go back, I just want to, and I want to also point out, we just found out, because we were concerned that we would have to fund 100% of this. They will co-fund this work. So this will be work that they will co-fund it. At first they didn't. And I know we worked on them, and we were very, very fortunate. They said, look, if you go to one of the pre-qualified ones, we'll let you, we'll co-fund this for you. So what that means is we have to go out for an RFP fairly quickly to get this process started. And in your packet, in that material, and I know that was sent to you, is the request for programming services. And this follows all the state guidelines. It's set up exactly in the same format. And since we didn't have to do an RFQ because they're pre-qualified, the pre-qualified short list of programming consultants are Frank Locher, Educational Planner, Warner Concepts, and Harrison Planning Group. I've worked with all three in the past. They're all very, very good. They put together a very good program. The most important part of that program are the interviews. So for us to do that, and now, Don, if you could move the thing, thank you, means that we need to issue this RFP by this Friday, and so it was at short notice that we sent it out to you. That would allow us to receive proposals by March 22nd, and then that would allow us to interview the firms and make a recommendation on March 26th, and then that means at your April 3rd board meeting, we would present that recommendation, and hopefully you as a board will approve it. And so that would keep us on track and to avoid a delay in the project itself. And so I appreciate what the state has done. I do appreciate the board here because we sort of dropped this on you. It's just been a bit frustrating with the state to get this started, but we found a solution, which everyone has worked very hard on. What I'd like to do is, I'd like to first, before we go to the next part of my presentation, to ask if you have any questions about the programmer or the visioning or the type of work that they would be doing. As I said, it's really geared toward interviews, then determining what our needs are, and then actually writing down what sizes all of the spaces would be, which has to be done within the guidelines of the Ohio School Design Manual, which is a standard that we accept to get that state money. It's a good standard. They build large classrooms. We've worked very well on the Randallwood project for that program also. But are there any questions? And Don, you can go to the next slide because that has any questions on
I
the
have
RFP.
One.
I think Member Mueller has a question.
Certainly.
You said the state will co-fund the work. Is that included in the 12 million or that outside the 12?
The 12 million is their dollars, yes, it's included inside that 12 million.
Oh, okay.
But sometimes it would be less than 12 million. If we would have started this, I have to tell you, we even considered starting without them and just say, hey, we're gonna go ahead and write our program. Then we would have lost their percentage, which is what, about 32%. And so we would have lost that money out of the 12 million.
Oh, okay.
Now, I'm going to tell you, this is not going to be inexpensive. When we receive this will be in the six figures, a little bit higher. I'm not exactly sure what the number would be, but it may be like 150,000. So when we do make a recommendation, we will have the fee amount. We'll know what that is, and that's what we do as part of our RFP proposal.
Mr. Zanoni, you say that's not a big number because you deal in tens
Yes,
of
millions of dollars.
hundreds of millions of dollars,
Yes,
so.
correct.
For
But
us
for the
still, 100
board,
yeah.
for the board, it is a big number.
Yeah, but
That-
I mean,
that's what I
in
meant.
relation to out of a $60 million project, or 68 million on our side, 150,000.
That's a lot of money. I mean, we can buy a couple houses with that, right? I mean, that's the way I look at it. So I personally look at it, but in terms of the overall project, that's why we felt very strongly we wanted to get this co-funded. We wanted the state to pay up their share of that process.
Question.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I didn't have the time, but I thought I would have to review the email that was sent to me. So can you just tell me again, what is the RFP gonna be for?
Yes.
What
it-
service is it?
There's a section called scope of service, and our piece in the other section is that, not in the PowerPoint. That's right, it's that document was sent to you. So it's not a long document. And basically, we describe the scope of services. They will develop an executive summary of the program vision documents. They will have a narrative of the project vision. That's pretty critical. And that basically defines the type of education that you as a district want to do for the middle school, high school. There will be a description of space requirements. That is every individualized space that will be in the middle school and the high school, plus we also are including all of our LFIs, which would include the bus garage, how large that should be, which would include board offices, would include all of the elements that we have. But it lists the desired spaces and identifies each space basic criteria. So it will have dimensions. So it'll say, hey, this classroom needs to be 30 feet by 30 feet. It needs to have these elements inside this classroom, even proportions, the height of those rooms, every individual space. There's going to be some specialized spaces for the middle school and high school, let's say for career tech, that have some unique requirements. They will determine every individual space. It'll be a pretty thick document when it gets completed. Then they'll have descriptions of any planning criteria, such as what does the teacher work, what kind of workstation that teacher uses, what kind of layout is best important. That is, does the room have to accommodate different layouts in terms of, is it traditional classroom where everybody's facing one direction, or is it in team teaching where students are basically in small groups, and how that works? Another piece for developing a program, it also determines all the circulation. What is that? Well, that's all the movement of students throughout a building, all of those types of elements, any ADA spaces, available spaces, modules. Then it also includes the building systems requirements. That is, what kind of mechanical system we should be looking at for the project, what kind of electrical. It really gets into depth on the pieces which include the technology, which is really important. Technology security, we'll have discussions on that, and we'll have description. It won't be a design of a building, but it will describe every single element that you're going to need. It's sort of like, I always describe it like a recipe. On the recipe, you know how you have every element, it says chicken and take a quarter teaspoon of salt and all those things? That's what it's gonna be for a building. So we'll have every single element described, and so it takes a lot of time. The way that is done is by first interviewing. They don't come up with it on their own. They interview us, and Don and his staff, plus key teachers. You have so many different programs. Like they will sit down with the sport, all the athletic people. They will sit down with everyone in music, drama, any specialties, all the science teachers, making sure all their elements are inside that program. And that'll take them, they'll do first the interviews in the first 2 months, and they'll be writing the whole program over the course of the summer. It's a pretty long process, and then they present drafts to us, and we go back and forth and initiate. We say, hey, we don't like this, or this doesn't make sense.
So we're talking like someone with background as an architect, then, is this?
Education and architecture. All of these individuals are not just architects. They either have taught, they're in education, some of them have have been in administrations. They have sort of combination of both design. They may not necessarily, I know that Chuck Warner is an architect, but he also was a teacher, a high school teacher, and he also was an administrator. So they're very unique in terms of their experience.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And we're going to ask them for cost through our proposal process. Even though it's not a bid, we don't necessarily have to pick the lowest price, but we want to know, it keeps their pencil sharp so we can see what their numbers are. Some RFPs don't do that. This RFP, if you see, we're asking for, you will see their proposed in requested submissions on the 3rd page. Their proposed fee for programming vision, provide lump sum fee, so that means it's just a lump sum rather than just an hourly to not to exceed, says this, and describe any reimbursable, because they have distance, or they have to provide documentation, books, whatever, what those costs would be. So before we would approve this, we would know how much we're gonna spend. And I've talked to Bill Prenisall, and he's gonna participate in the process with us. So he's our representative from the state on planning. So he's been kind enough. So he'll be there, and he can advise us, because he's done this with so many districts across the state, to say, hey, wait a minute, that number is wrong. And maybe we like someone, but we need to negotiate their number, and we have that ability to do that. And by doing an RFP, if you look at the instructions submissions, we can reject it in the end. We're not committed, whatever costs they have to put their proposal together. We're very clear, it's not our responsibility, it's theirs. So we have a lot of ways to back out. But this basically, we just use the template that the state has in terms of putting this together. Are there any other questions on the? Okay, great, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, what I want to talk about is the new elementary school status. And you'll see the first picture. We're pretty excited. The demolition is complete. And here you can see some pictures of and I'm sure you passed by the site as it was being demolished, and it was pretty exciting. We got the building down. Also in the next set of pictures was the old library. That's completely down. So we're very pleased. We're on schedule. But I will tell you that we had some unforeseen conditions, and I want to discuss that. And that was on the site. And let me first talk about, in general, unforeseen conditions and how we actually budgeted for those unforeseen conditions when we started the project. And this is not uncommon, especially when you build over an existing building. We have a contingency fund of approximately $500,000 for this type of situation. And what was discovered? Well, we found out that the existing Randallwood foundations, which are underground, which we can't visually see, were different than what was assumed. Why was there assumption? Well, first of all, there were no drawings of the building. When the building was built, it was still the village of Warrensville Heights, and there was no, when they had a permit, they got rid of all their documents. So we never even found documents. The architects didn't exist, so we couldn't find those. So we did not know what exactly was going to be underground. Well, what did we find? Well, first of all, the actual foundations as they were built are different than what was assumed. We assumed they would be traditional, which are called spread footers, which is like your home would be this way, and basically they go below the frost line about 3 feet, and they spread the weight of the building from that. And they're very simple foundations. Well, what they were was actually what we call, and I'll go into a little more detail in a moment, was deep caissons and grade beams. Well, that's a lot more material. The other thing that we found was that the site conditions under the existing Randallwood building are extremely wet. Again, we did soil borings, couldn't find this, and it seems like it's a collection center underneath that building, and that makes it difficult to build the building when you have a lot of water. So let me go to the next slide and let me talk about this. So as soon as we find out that there are unforeseen conditions, the project team of the architect, the engineers, the construction manager, they immediately sat down and started developing solutions to minimize any cost impacts. Because now that it's different, we have bigger foundations, we have a lot more to remove, and that we have to make sure we handle the wet conditions. So these are the following issues that are being investigated today as we speak. First of all, the additional work to remove the existing foundations. Let me try to explain this, and basically what this is they're what we call very deep caissons. These are like columns in the ground. We don't know exactly how deep they are, and we don't need to take them out, but we do need to cut them about 3 feet below grade. The reason being is we don't want to take them out because it's very difficult to do, and so that has to happen. But between each of these, they build a structure they call grade beams. It's like as if it were a beam between each of these columns that are that go around the site. Those have to be removed. It's a lot more material, a lot more trucking to remove all of those. So there is a cost that's involved in that. The other part is the wet site conditions cause two items. One is now we have to do a different type of foundation. We've realized when we budgeted the project we were going to do spread footings. That's what the soil boring said we could do. Well, because it's wet, you have to go to these deeper caissons and grade beams. So we're now redesigning the structure for the foundations, and we need to have a way to drain the site as we're building. You can't build in water. You can let the water come back. I mean, but we're going to have drainage systems. So the engineers have come up with a good solution. It's basically adding more gravel on top. We did buy actually quite a bit of it, and this is an additional. So they're looking at those pieces and parts. So what this means is there's going to be an added cost. Now, when I say an added cost, not an added cost to our budget, an added cost that we had as contingency money that we're now defining today as an item. So we have a contingency money to use this. So what happens next? So if you could just go to the next slide. We're going to keep you updated as the status of resolving this. I'm hoping we can get this resolved in the next month. I can come back next month and we can present this. Now, what the following steps are going to occur. Once we agree, the team says, and we have to get the engineers and the builders to be in agreement on how to do this. You can't do one without the other, and they're working together. And so once they agree on some sort of solution and it's accepted by that team, they're going to price a change order. Now, I hate the word that's called change order. It's not a change. If we would have known this, we would have budgeted for it. We did know it. We knew there was something, so we did have some contingency money, so we did budget for it. But since this is co-funded, which I like about our project, both the state of Ohio and our team have to review that change order. So it's not just my team that's reviewing it. We also have the people from the state. Now, why is that a benefit? Well, first of all, they build a lot more than we do. So they have a lot more clout in negotiation in terms of the building. So that's going to make a difference. And they've encountered this situation in the past. So they know, hey, when we had this over in, and I tell you, Amherst is a good example. They keep bringing it up, says, you know, this happened at Amherst schools. Well, they know what the pricing was and all of that. So they're gonna put a very detailed look at that. So we have to review it with the state, and both we as a district, through my group, and the state have to be in agreement of this before we would present any kind of change order. Because remember, this change order is co-funded. This contingency money, 30% of that, 500, is the state's money. So we're co-funding this together, so that's why we got to agree. So what'll happen, we will present eventually to you a change order, and it'll probably be multiple change orders. I don't want to make it as simple as that, as one change order. And what we'll do is, we'll probably have one for the removal of the foundations. So that'll probably be one of the first that we may see right away. How much extra did that cost? Then we'll have another where we'll have the new type of foundation. Well, as part of that change order, we're going to get a credit for the foundations we originally bought compared to the thing. So it's going to be the delta, the difference. And then the third will be the additional drainage system and some sort of, we want to put a drainage system, an additional one, even after it's built, so we're not rushing water under this new building. And that'll probably be a third change order. Might go into 4, sometimes these things get split up. So I don't want you to be surprised. Now, we're going to keep you as a board informed of this. We're not going to, you know, we're not going to, and that's why we're here. That's why I'm here today. I wanted to make sure that you as a board knew that this was going on. It's important that you know. We're working on a solution. I always get worried in any community when people see work being on, that a lot of rumors go around. I mean, this way you as board members can talk to the community and say, hey, you know, it was unforeseen. We planned for it, and they're dealing with it. Now, one other item, I am not sure on the schedule. There might be a modification of the schedule. They are working very hard to keep us on schedule. And Don and I have been working with their team. And I can't say if we have to extend the schedule. When you do have an unforeseen condition, that happens. And so I'm not sugarcoating it. We may have some modification of the schedule. Don is aware of that. He's looking at that, what impact that would have on the district. So what I'd like to do is just open it to questions to you. I know that's a lot I threw at you today, but I certainly would like to make sure you're well aware of what's happening on the project.
Board, are there any questions?
Yeah, I'll focus. So I just want to clarify, you said that OFCC, I guess it's when you say the state, that's what you're
Yes,
referring
yes.
to, right? You will both review change orders, so is that all change orders? that
Yes.
come through? Any change?
Yeah,
orders?
and that's a good point. That's right. I think we've never talked about that. Every change order
Okay.
has to be reviewed by the state and ourselves. We can't, it can't get through. So before we would present any change order to you as a board to recommend approval, they will have done their review and approval. They will say, yes, we do believe this is a proper change order.
So how is that communicated to us as a board? And I'm not saying we
No, I
need to
think
be
it's
all
very
in the
good.
weeds, but I'm looking at it from the
Let me-
financially.
Let me tell, boy, I'm glad you asked that. We're actually having a meeting on Monday where we're gonna go through change order. There's more than just change orders, things called requests for information. How do we communicate that? Well, one of the things that you did as a board is you did give Don and Mike signing authority for change orders, I believe up to, what was that, 50,000. Now, I'm gonna tell you, I've worked with Don and Mike now for quite a while. You're gonna know about those, that I know them. They're not gonna sign anything unless the board knows it, anything that gets near there. Anything beyond 50,000, you as a board will have to approve. And the reason why I wanted to bring these unforeseen, I'm gonna tell you, they're probably gonna be above that number. So small change orders, there will be small ones. We will have, and Doug can kind of talk about this, we will have in your board packet a summary, once we really get into construction, which will summarize all the change orders. And it'll say, look, we had a change order for this, we had a change. Now, they're usually very small. They're only a couple thousand, might be even a couple hundred. We try to negotiate those away because say, hey, you can
Right, you can eat
take
that.
care of that for us. But you will be aware of every change order. You'll be aware of every change order that Don or Mike sign up to that $50,000 limit. And you, as a board, will have to approve anything beyond that. Now, where do we get a lot of change orders? Well, on new construction, we get it for soils and unforeseen conditions. The other types of change orders that we may see when we build is, and this happens a lot, is much later in the construction, new technology comes out. All of a sudden, everybody says, gee, why are we've selected this, it's old technology, we don't have to buy it yet, let's buy something new, it may cost more. We have contingency funds for that also, for those. So you may see change orders. We shouldn't be seeing change orders for after we get out of the ground. The next really big ones would be, unless the architects make a mistake, and believe me, they better not, we're going through page turners with the state and all that, would be if we make a change in what we want to buy. And that will happen. I'm going to be very frank with you. When you get, the rooms are getting just finished up, you may have a teacher who has a need and say, hey, you know, this outlet doesn't really work over here for me, we need to move it, or we may have our technology people say some things. Well, we will have change orders. I mean, I'm not gonna, you know, that's gonna happen. But let me tell you our process, I think we have a good process. First of all, it's reviewed by not just us, but the state. Plus, the architect has to agree to it too. I mean, the architect does a review first, then the state does, then we do. Secondly, you as a board will know, so on smaller change orders, you'll see that list, so you can hammer it. Well, I'll be here, but you know, you can say, Don, why'd you sign that? And we'll explain that. And if it's beyond 50, which I believe these unforeseen ones, you're going to have to make the final decision before that work is done. Now, we are allowing a little bit of work, which is still in that 50,000 range, to start removing some material. So those are coming, but then they package it up into a board. They can't get their money until the board approves that.
Can I ask one more question?
Oh, please.
So you talked about a couple of different contingency fees?
Yeah.
So just how many?
Not
different
many,
ones?
not
No?
as many. We have an owner's contingency, which is that 500. We have a design contingency still in the estimate. And by the way, the estimates at the end of DD are still in alignment. We didn't go over budget. We have that, and then we have a construction manager contingency. We don't get control of that until later into the process. Until they bid out all the projects, we start taking some of that money away, and that's where we use some change orders.
So is that part of what would be communicated to us as well?
Yeah,
Hey,
where
we
the
have
money's coming. Oh, wait a minute.
$500,000
Oh,
in contingency fees, and
absolutely.
we run through it.
We're gonna, yes, if we run through it, we will have to find another place. We will have to tell you where the money is coming from, either way. If it's coming out of contingency, if it's coming out of, if we have to put more funds into the project, we would have to tell you. Yeah, part of the change order process is to tell you where the money's coming from. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I'm not giving a guarantee, but you know, if we do have a large contingency fund inside the segment 2 that is available to us, but I don't, you know, we're hoping not to use that. I think these are good questions, and that's why we're here. I'd rather have you understand that well before we bring an actual change order to you. That's why we're here today. We feel very strongly, we want to keep you informed of what's going on.
Board, are there any other questions? Thank you for the question. At this time, then, we will need a motion on the floor for item 3.2 to approve the RFP for visioning services. Thank you so much, Steve.
Madam Chair, I make a motion for the request of proposals, RFP, vision services and programming.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
you. It's been moved and seconded. If there are no other questions, discussion?
I have a question. Dr. Rock, were you able to add those things that we discussed earlier, or you didn't, for this RFP?
Okay. For the
Yes.
RFP?
Okay, they were? Okay,
Yes, it's in the motion.
okay.
Authorize the treasurer and superintendent to seek out RFP for visioning services with the treasurer opening all RFPs received per the board policy.
Okay,
So
thank
I'll
you.
be with Steve when we open them.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll arrange that.
So in the future, when there are changes to the agenda, can you please let myself and Mr. Freeman know? Because we knew it needed to be added. We were not sure of the verbiage that was added. And because we both work full-time jobs, I don't stay in board docs all day long.
Yeah,
So we
certainly.
were not aware that additional things had come through. So please be sure to share that with us as a board.
This whole thing's moving at lightning speed.
I understand about that, but the addition, no, you guys called us earlier about that, but the additional language, we were not aware of. So just if you could keep us all
Got it.
in the loop, that would be awesome.
The
Because that's
entire
part of
board.
I said all of us, yes. That would be all 5 of us. That's part
Yes.
of the communication challenges that we're dealing with today that we want to try to rectify.
Done.
So, thanks. Can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mrs. Elba,
Yes.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you again, Steve. We're really appreciative that you guys came out and shared with us, and we do look forward to future meetings. We understand now that as the construction is moving forward, there's going to be a lot of moving pieces of parts, and none of us are construction experts up here, so any bit of information that you can continue to come and share with us will be greatly appreciated.
You'll see us again in April.
Right,
You saw it's on the thing, so you see us there.
right.
You'll see us at minimum once a month,
Thank you.
if not twice.
All right, thank you guys so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
So, Board, now we're going to move into the body of our work session, moving into Section 4. There were a couple of things that I wanted to touch on based on the meeting, our last work session meeting in February. Have a good evening, everybody. So I wanted to make sure they were carried forth on this discussion tonight. 4.1 is the NSBA educational tracks. 4.2 is OSBA BLI attendance, because BLI is right around the corner. We also talked about 4.3, reviewing available school board and conferences and professional development. And then 4.4, Member Elba had requested that we put on future attendance requests. We need to talk about it for all of us. And then 4.5, we will put a motion on the floor to approve professional development for a session that Member Elba wanted to attend in Columbus today.
And on Saturday, on the 9th.
We did not have that for the night. Did you have that, Dr. Rock?
So I'll be attending the one on Saturday.
That's our retreat.
I won't be attending the retreat.
Okay, then you'll have, when it's time to hit 4.5, please let us know what it is, and in the future, if you could get it, because we're working on the agenda all the time, and we could have added it to the agenda, so it would be present. So for section 4.1, the NSBA educational tracks, we had talked, since all of us are going to, can we open that one up, please? At 4.1.
4.1, John.
We had talked about trying to make sure that we conquer and divide it, what we participated in. I know, Ms. Barber, you shared your concerns, and they're viable, about ensuring that we're not all going to the same classes and we're not spreading out, and making sure we're getting the biggest bang out of our buck. So I went out to NSBA's site and I pulled down, it's actually a 2-page document. It is in our board docs, and I printed a copy, but it basically walks us through all the tracks that they have. And, we don't have to decide tonight, but I would like us to take a look at it so that when we do get into Philly on March 29th, we can figure out who's going to take which educational track. So when we come back and present to the community and share with Mr. Jolly and his team, we have we always have good information to share, but we have good information to share that's learning track specific. So it is in board docs if you guys need it. I do have a PDF of it on my home laptop because like I said, I pulled it down and I flipped it into a PDF. So just, start thinking about that. If there's anything that is really important to somebody, just let us know. And we will make sure that you will be the one board member taking that track. There are enough tracks, honestly, if you want to, kind of straddle two, just as long as we make sure we try hard not to take the same classes. I think that's all we're asking. Okay. Thoughts, comments?
So I did look at the different tracks that were up there, and sometimes when you look at the programming that they've got, you might think that it's something you want to go to, but then when you look at it, it's like, no, I really don't want to go. So that's why I kind of looked at 2 or 3 different tracks. And it was advocacy, master class, I'm going to be curious to see what that one has, and then student achievement and accountability. I actually picked 3, so, but again, it's because you don't always see something that you want to attend.
Right.
So,
I think the schedule is up, though, because I started digging in to see which
I
classes.
looked last week, I didn't see anything.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
So, yeah, because I started trying to look to see which ones I might want to be, taking. And again, like, there's so many classes going on that weekend, as long as we try not to overlap and duplicate. Okay. The next on the work session agenda is OSBA BLI attendance. That is at the end of April. I believe it's the weekend of April 26th. So, Dr. Rock, I don't know if, I'm sure pre-registration, early registration has started. So if board members are interested in attending BLI for OSBA in Columbus this year, if we could let Dr. Rock know tonight. And then we'll make sure it's on the March 20th agenda for us to vote on as a board.
What is the cost for BLI? Do you have that information? I mean, I know it's $285, but do you know what we spent in the past?
Oh, yeah, it would be
Probably
right on
comes
our
to close
list.
to about $1,000
Per person?
total, yeah. By the time you include maybe $700, hotel.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be a little bit low. It's how many
It's-
nights? 2 nights?
It's only
It's
One night?
Friday night.
And that's it.
Well, Friday and Saturday.
Friday night, it's just one night.
It's 1 night, so you get $200 there, $150 of mileage. So, yeah, probably about $700.
So
I
for
would like to
me,
attend that.
I would kind of like
I
to
said I would
know
like to.
what
Okay.
my cost is gonna be, if I could get an estimate. I know you guys kind of looked and determined that the ones that you put on, the ones that we had discussed at the one meeting kind of fell within the range of what we budgeted, but I would still kind of like to see.
I'll calculate an
Um,
estimate for you. No problem.
Yeah, a BLI, I'm gonna get ahead, I think you were also gonna talk
Well,
about some of the other
But
tracks.
when Dr. Rock and I worked, we calculated BLI, OSBA Capital Conference, Q, and National, NSBA. Those were the 4 conferences that were calculated that will comfortably fit within that $6,000.
I'm sorry, I just don't have them with me tonight. We
Yeah, I
talked
agree.
about it, I
I didn't
brought
bring
it to that
spreadsheets
meeting and
either.
didn't.
So those were the ones, because those are basically the ones that we all attend.
Getting ahead. I think I'm getting ahead. I'll have to let you know. I'm not sure if
No
I'm
problem.
really ahead.
Yeah, we got time.
So Member Mumin says she's definitely interested. Member Alba?
I already sent him an email.
Okay, but you have to communicate with all of us. We're not
Let me say
aware.
this.
We're
I
not
sent
aware.
I sent this email to everybody about me attending the conference on the 6th, the Council of Great City Schools, NAB, CQ. I said I was attending all of those.
We have that on the
I sent that email
agenda.
twice.
We
So
have that.
that's what I'm attending. I'm also attending the one on this Saturday that's on Board, Superintendent, and Treasury evaluations. That's what I'm attending.
Again, we have a struggle on the board with communication. We were aware of your email requesting Hugh, NASB, and Council of Gray City Schools. That's on the agenda. We were also aware of the session that you wanted to take today. We were unaware of Saturday's class because I too wanted to take that class, but am unable to because of our board retreat.
Okay, well,
I'm not finished, please.
Okay.
So in the future, I will ask, just as you did the email to us about the items in 4.4 and the item that we're going to vote on in 4.5, if you could please, when you send it to Dr. Rock, copy the board, because as we discussed, we are going to follow our board policy, and before anyone is registered for any conferences, workshops, or professional development, it will be board approved. Again, that policy has been in place since, it's been in place longer than yeah, something like that. So we're just going to follow the policy as it's already been written.
Okay, so I'm going to say this once again. I am attending the one on Saturday.
We heard you loudly and clearly.
I've sent the email about this, and so I'll be sending it, I'll send it again right now so everybody can have that I'll be attending on Saturday.
Again, I will share for the record, this board did not receive an email from March 9th. The other ones we did. So in the future, copy the board.
Oh, God.
We will note that and make that adjustment when we make that motion to approve.
We can vote on it tonight.
We're going to
Okay.
vote on it tonight, Member
Okay.
Elba. I've already said that.
Madam
Okay,
Chair,
thank you.
So, yes, Mr.
and,
Freeman.
Board Member Elba, are we still sticking to the 6,000, or did we
Yes.
change it? Okay.
Nope, we are, because Dr. Rock has put
Curious.
together a really nice accounting system where each board, in fact, I'll let you talk about it.
Yes, we have, every board member has an account, and you can look at the details of how much you've spent so far. I'll be able to pass out that account at the board meetings, and I'll have that at the next one. I have it calculated, it's on my desk. I'm so sorry I missed.
That's okay,
It's
Dr.
one file I
You'll have,
missed.
you'll have one for all the board members on
Yep.
the 20th? Okay, all right, thank you.
But what I do have, though, is can I pass this out?
Absolutely.
So, this is, where you can see Mrs. Ellis' class that she's attending, and all the other OSBA ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just thought maybe this might, since you're talking about it.
Thanks.
And then when you're ready, I did Council of Greater Cities, NSBA. You want me to just pass them out so you have them?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Dr. Rock?
I just
Thank you,
went to
sir.
the websites
I
and
thought you did research on
printed
that.
whatever I could
I
print
thought you did research on that.
that shows the courses.
Oh, okay.
Bless you. Go backwards. I'm sorry.
It's quite all right, thank you.
This last one's the one, and Mrs. Elba went to the NAPC.
Thank you.
There's the last ones. Oh, whoops. Oh, yeah, and you guys, not supposed to get this.
Thank you, Dr. Rock.
You're welcome. I just figured since the board be talking about them, might as well pass them out, and it might add to the conversation.
So again, beyond Member Muman, I know Member Gator is waiting. Mr. Freeman and Ms. Elba, are you planning to go to BLI?
She said she was, I'm not sure, so I'll let her.
No, she didn't say she was. She gave the other list.
Right, is it on her list? Oh, okay, well, I'm not sure.
Okay, just let us know, because I'd like to put it on the March 20th agenda so it can be, we can
I'll
get
send
our
it out to all the
registration.
boards, no later than Monday.
Is that Monday? Thanks, thank you, sir.
11th, what is Monday? I do have a question though, Madam Chair.
Go right ahead.
Did any of the board members go last year, 2018? I don't recall.
I know I didn't.
Not
because I
board
had a
leadership.
conflict.
think Mrs. Moomin went 3 years ago or 2 years ago.
She went 2 years with
I
me.
think it
2
was
years
2
ago.
years ago, I didn't go last year.
Okay.
So with that, we will let you know, Dr. Rock, and we'll make sure it's on the agenda for proper approvals. So thank you. Mimi and both Dr. Rock had done homework to provide us with a list of available school conferences, school board conferences, and professional development. As we talked in our last work session, we were looking to see what was going on within OSBA, others, PD classes for us through NSBA. I know, Michelle, you said you get emails from other entities, and we wanted to put together a comprehensive calendar so we could get an overview of what's coming, what the conferences are about, who would like to go, because I know we had mentioned it might be nice to step outside of the normal ones that we go to all the time and attend some different conferences. So we have a start. We will work to put this into a calendar view. I know Mimi and I were chatting, and she said she would start putting that in a calendar view. But as we're learning about more school board conferences and workshops, when we receive the emails, forward them on to the board so we could take a look at it and see if it's something that we would be interested in other members attending. Because I know I get Perkins Consulting, I get quite a few of their professional development workshops, but I know a couple of them that I saw as of late were not school board related, but they were some sessions that I thought I might take advantage of personally because they look pretty good. I'm not sure, but I've been on it for a couple of years now. So I don't know if I signed something at one of the went under the conferences and got on their mailing list or not, but I am on their mailing list. So as I get those, I'll send them. I thought we all were.
I never got none from.
Okay, so I'll send them. Yeah, so I probably signed up for something. Mhm. So Michelle, when you get some of the emails that you shared that you could, do you mind sharing those with the rest of us?
I get Perkins Consulting.
I'm sorry?
I get Perkins Consulting.
Is that it? You may mention that you get a lot of emails from other entities.
Mm.
Oh, no, this is the one that you had mentioned, at the last meeting. Something, that's the one that Obama was gonna be at. Did you find out which one that was?
You sent the email for it.
But you had said, I don't think that's the right one, so I wasn't
Oh,
sure
yeah, that was the right
if
one.
that was it.
I'm not going to it because it's very expensive.
And when I looked at it, to me, it did not appear to be completely educational based. It was more equity based or something like that.
It was, I think it was leadership, more leadership.
Yeah.
So if we can just keep each other on the radar, and we'll begin to build out that calendar view, I think that will be helpful, so we can see what else is going on, because we might step out of our norm. Is there any more discussion on that particular topic? As we move into section 4.4, Member Elba had asked for us to put on this agenda requests for future attendance for CUBE, NASB, Council of Great City Schools. We will put those on the March 20th agenda to vote on, because CUBE is something that others of us also attend. So I just wanted to see, I know we are tentative right now, but are we looking to attend CUBE as a board, as we normally do, in support of Vice President Freeman's role at the national level on the steering committee?
Yes,
Okay.
at least I am.
So are we attending because he's on the steering committee, or are
We're-
we attending because you want to go to the conference?
It's a combination, it's a combination of the two. It's a combination of the two. Ms. Muehlman, are you interested in going to CUBE this year? And you don't have to make your decision, we're just trying to get a feel.
I am.
Okay. We know you'll be there.
You gotta be there.
So it looks like the board will be there this
The
year,
whole
Ms.
board?
Dr.
CUBE?
Rock. Yeah. So then we will go ahead and put CUBE, NASB, and Council of Great City Schools on the March 20th agenda for approval.
So you'll be wanting to know who's going to NAPSI and Great City
Well,
We know Michelle has said
if,
she's
if
going.
there's others that want to go, if you can let us know, that way we know exactly who we're voting on.
I'm considering NAPSI. I want to speak to them a little bit more about the programming. And, you know, just in looking at the programming that they have, what I thought was kind of interesting is that they also have, conferences, Mr. Jolly, for leaders, student leaders. So I thought that was kind of cool. You know, it might be something that we could do with students in attendance.
Where is it located this year?
So it doesn't, what, the NAPSI con?
Dallas,
Dallas, ain't it?
I think it's Dallas.
I don't know where it's located.
It's in Texas.
And I don't know where the different youth summits are that they're having this year, but, I would like to share some information on that one with it as well. It's about building leaders, they've got a separate section for, girls as well as young men.
We'll note that. I think that's a great opportunity.
It's in Michigan.
You said Michigan?
Last year it
The
was in
leaders.
Detroit. This information in here is based on last year.
I'll keep looking at the site.
Their website's not up to date.
Right, yeah. And she told me because I called her, she said that they're making some changes to it.
Where's Cube this year?
Miami, Florida.
Miami.
Miami.
She's like, Lord, it's gonna be hot.
You're not gonna go?
Let me think about
Okay. All right.
it. What about the Council of Greater City? Where is that?
Do you know where that is this year?
Louisville, Kentucky.
It's in Louisville.
Is it Louisville?
Louisville. It's in Louisville.
Louisville, Kentucky.
Have anybody attended that?
Michelle's going.
I'm not going to that one.
Okay, so on the 20th agenda, we will have Q, NASB, Council of Great City Schools on there for approval with the appropriate school board members.
What
So,
about BLI? Will that be on there?
yes. 4.5, we do need a motion on the floor, and it will need to include the professional development classes scheduled for, Michelle took one today, March 6th, and there is the second one that will be that she's taking March 9th. That's valuing, evaluation, and strategies to implement superintendent, treasurer, and board self-evaluations to improve leadership relationships. So if I can have a motion on the floor so we can,
One quick question before.
Yeah, because I'm lost.
Too late?
let us put the motion on the floor,
Okay.
and then we'll discuss it.
All right.
So if we can have a motion on the floor, please, to approve item 4.5, professional development classes for March 6th and March 9th for member Elba.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve professional development class for member Michelle Elba for March 6th and March 9th.
March 9th is not on here.
We're adding March
So
9th.
we're adding that.
And may I have a second?
A second.
Thank you. It's been approved. It's been moved and seconded. Now we can open the floor for discussion.
The only problem that I'm having with this is the fact that we have planned a retreat. It wasn't planned last week. It's been on our schedule. The retreat is something to benefit all of us. It's not for the four of us and then send one person someplace else. To me, I don't think any of us should attend anything on the 9th if we already had something planned. That's how I feel. I just feel that we shouldn't do that.
If I may, we as a board are still individuals, and we cannot make adults do
The right thing.
we can't make adults do something that they choose not to do. And Member Elba was very clear up front. She was very clear and very polite when she shared she was not attending the retreat, and we have to respect that. So we will move forward with the retreat. We will continue to focus on the work that we've been trying to do as a board to build, and I actually have the agenda I'll walk through when we're done with the vote. But we have to respect the voices at the table, and we have one voice that shared she opted not to attend, and we have to respect that.
And I'm going to respect.
So I do thank you for your comments. Is there any other discussion?
Barbara said exactly what I was going to say. I will just say that I'm looking forward to the retreat, though. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us to come together as a board and get some really good professional development. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Any other discussion before we take a vote to approve?
I just have one comment, Madam Chair. I mean,
Sure.
like Board Member Mumin said, we have all these actual opportunities to get education and educate ourselves as board members. But what are we doing individually or as a board to move this district forward? I mean, are we putting a light on this district? Are we celebrating our scholars? Are we celebrating the hard work that the Superintendent Donald J. Jolly II and our Treasurer, Dr. Michael Rock, are doing? I mean, are we doing things just not upon ourselves, but upon everything to put a light on Warrensville Heights City School District? Just a statement. I'm just curious, like Ms. Mumin said. I see all this education and we're doing all this stuff. That's great. But what are we doing? Does people know who Warrensville are? Do people help, are the kids knowing who we are? So, I don't know. That's it.
I have respectfully heard all statements, and I thank everyone for their comments. If there's no further comments, Dr. Rock, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Elba,
Yep.
Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
No.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell.
Yes, motion passes 4-1. Thank you, Board. Before we go, though, into the next section, I did ask Deb to shoot me over an overview of what we're talking about.
Yes, who?
Deborah,
Oh.
he's right, for the retreat. We are gonna have dinner at 5 o'clock, and we are at the A-Loft. Does everybody? So, you know what, I apologize, we had not communicated that. We are at the A-Loft in Beechwood. The Aloft, A-Loft? Aloft. Dinner is at 5 o'clock. We'll begin at 5:30 with light opening remarks. And then we're covering off on 3 main topics: governance through relationships, connection to our values, and then she's got talking points under that. We adjourn at 9 o'clock. We will begin at Saturday morning, and we'll probably do like we did last time and decide if it's at 8 or 8:30 start time. So if it's at 8, breakfast will be from 8 to 8:30. If it's 8:30, it'll be 8:30 to 9, but we'll decide that Friday night. And we're going to continue conversations on managing board conflict, crucial managing board conflict, crucial accountability, and gaining tools to help us become more accountable as board members. So I think, you know, I really enjoyed working with Mr. Jolly and Dr. Rock. A few board members had shared inputs on topics that they'd like to have covered, and these 2 gentlemen were really fun to work with as we put together our content for the retreat, and then we worked with Deb to finalize it. So I'm looking forward to a good retreat. Please be comfortable. Jeans, tennis shoes, this is a retreat, so we're coming to work. So I'm looking forward to it. So we will be at the Aloft in Beechwood, and dinner is at 5:30, and I understand people are coming from work. I kept the times exactly what we had done before, because everyone before had said they worked. So on Dr. Rock, and thank you. He has done a phenomenal job working with the partners at the Aloft to put together all of the logistics for our retreat, so thank
It's
you.
my pleasure.
She wants to share the agenda at the retreat. Yeah, because we asked her, so she'd like to just share with us at the retreat. Okay?
Can I just say something?
Yes, you
Because
can.
we keep sitting here talking about communication, and I'm hearing Ms. Gator didn't know we were at the Aloft.
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay, well,
I
the
didn't
email,
know
who,
where we were.
who knew where we were? And if you're talking about communication, I'm so confused as to why a board wouldn't be prepared ahead of time to have an agenda. And I hear you saying that Mrs. Keys Wright decided to send it out, but I think the fairness to the people, if you want to know your agenda and be prepared, you keep talking about being prepared. How better be prepared if you don't have an agenda? So, I mean, and I know you're not sending it out, but if you're in communication, since we keep talking communication, maybe you need to communicate to Ms. Wright if she could send it out ahead of time.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Mhm.
So stay tuned, I will talk, and we'll see what she wants, but we literally looked at all the work that we did in October, it's continuity. It's exactly continuing, it's picking up where the last one ended. So the topics, the information is really not straying too far from that one. We looked at the norms that we had set up, and our, what does she call them, goals that we had set up as a board, and we literally walked through all of them just to see where we are and what needs to continue to be worked on. So, it's straight off of those documents that were her takeaways for us at the conclusion of the October retreat. Okay. All right.
She seems to have a method, so.
She does.
It may be by design not to share the agenda.
I'm gonna let it go, I get that though, but we'll see how this one plays out.
Any further conversation? If none, we're gonna move into section 5, board policies.
I just have one comment. Going back to the board workshops, while we're voting on people attending, and for the record, nobody needs to make a comment. You can't deny any board member of attending anything. I'm just putting that out there. Thank you. Thank you.
Nope, we're gonna let it be.
Thank you, I
Just so
appreciate it.
you know, but you're right, we cannot deny. However, Ohio revised codes do very clearly state what will be reimbursed and what won't be
Well,
reimbursed.
And that's fine.
So
but-
we just want to make sure that's out on the record as well.
Exactly, that gives me a
Right.
roadmap on who's approved to be
Right,
paid.
but as, you know what, as we read 01751 though, it very clearly states, and again, this is prior to us being on this board, it very clearly states that it does require board approval. So we're just trying to follow the policies that have been set forth before we were on this board. So is perfect segue into item 5.1. Jonathan, can you bring up 0175.1, please? And I do believe we all have it in our package as well. This will be the first reading.
I didn't see it in the packet.
Oh, she didn't put it in our packet? I thought it was.
I seen the student welfare, I didn't see that one.
I know I bought it because I printed it. We're doing the first reading on 0175 because we made that one small change at the work session in February. Now I can't find my copy. It was emailed to us. I do apologize, I thought it was in the DRI board package.
I don't have it.
It's
Board docs, too.
It's on board docs. So we made as a board, 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph down,
Come up a little bit, Jim. All right, right there.
travel and personal expenses of spouse, children, or either, whoa, are you gonna make it bigger? Okay. We made adjustments in that very last sentence. Expenses for convention functions attended as a group will be borne by the district within established budgetary limits set by the board. So we added the word established and set by the board. So this was our discussion in February. Dr. Rock has worked with our attorneys to make those changes, and so this is our first reading. And it is in this policy. where we state board members shall be paid for attendance at approved training programs. And that's relative to 3313.12. So this is the first reading. We will have a second reading, and then we will look to get this approved in April.
Comment?
Yes, ma'am.
So I see where it says the president of the board will regularly receive a record of board member attendance. I didn't see this before, didn't it? Define regularly. I mean, regularly could be every month, it could be every 6 months. Do we need to, how do you guys feel about being a little bit more specific, or?
So we talked to Dr. Rock, we did talk about that, and we asked him, I think we said monthly?
Well, exactly, but the procedure here and the concept behind this is you're gonna have it in your minutes on your agenda every time in live time when people are going. And then we could accumulate a historical report also on who attended.
So we will regularly receive a record
I'm
of
good,
board member
thanks.
attendance at conference. So does that just mean that we'll know who's going to conferences, or will we also know what the budget balances are?
Yes, you'll get a monthly report on your accounts that I will submit to you that'll show exactly where everybody's been spent. Now, the only thing is, that's on the cash basis, so it's like the cash went out. But there will be encumbrances also on there, so if you scheduled for something and we made a purchase order and encumbered it, that shows up on that report too. So you'll be getting that report, and on your agendas, you'll have it in live time as you're approving them. Like on the March 20th, the notes we made, you're gonna see that.
Okay. Question for you, Dr. Rocket, if it's okay. Would you say, are you seeing a lag time with people turning in their expense reports? Well, I mean, 2 weeks, 30 days? The reason I'm asking
yeah, it
that is
fluctuates.
because if we're trying to keep a regular accounting of budgets to make sure that we don't have individuals going over, that's gonna be important.
Yes, you'll see that on your individual account, because before you go to a major place, like if you're going to Cube and you're going to Miami, we give you that advance check. So that advance check shows up as an expense, and then when you bring back the expenditures and they're lower than that expense, then we net that against that, and the lower cost
You'll
ends up in
deduct
your
it out.
account. Yeah,
So
you'll see the plus and the minus.
So it'll show, let's just say we were gone for 5 days, $250 for meals.
Yes.
And then when we return the receipts,
And you come back,
then
yeah.
it would be deducted, so, okay.
You
so
come
it would
back
be-
and it's $108.34, you'll see the difference come off as a negative
Okay.
when you return the advance cash. So you'll be seeing both of those, you'll be seeing the approvals in live time, and then every month you'll be getting that report.
Okay, so then to Michelle's point that she made earlier about you can't deny a board member, but once they hit that $6,000, then there is no approval, you don't have money to travel, and you'll be traveling on your own dime.
Which is what I just said. They will no longer get reimbursed. It won't be any more payment from the board, because we did agree as a board to stay within the $6,000.
So, again, we'll be traveling on our own dime once you go over the 6,000. Gotcha. I'm cool, thank you.
And just so anyone has any questions, before we started this conversation, we met with our attorneys to ask the legality of this. So we're not working outside of the law. We are working within the law.
What did she say? She just, I mean, is that pretty much what she said?
That's what she said. Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. It was pretty clear and cut and dry. Okay.
Good questions.
Yes, excellent questions. Next on the agenda is policies 1613, 3213, 4213. Member Gator, I'm going to hand this over to you and Mr. Jolly.
Yes, these 3 policies are about student supervision and welfare. After we had some incidents early in the fall, we convened a committee of the union presidents and selected people, and looked at these 3 policies and there were recommendations to update this policy. The new recommendations are in green on each of the three policies. They all three policies one reflects certified staff, one reflects non-certified staff, and the other one reflects the administrator. So they were basically updated, some additional names were added. Parent permission was added, like, if we go through it, we'll see the first part, superintendent, each administrator should report immediately to the business manager and superintendent any accident or safety hazard or potentially harmful condition or situation she detects. This is on 1613. And this is for administrators. We also added in this one, administrators should not transport students home in private vehicles without the approval of the superintendent and parent permission, and only in emergency situations. That was added. We changed MySpace on the bottom part because people don't use MySpace. Replaced that with Instagram. On the professional staff, same we changed professional staff members shall report immediately to, instead of building administrator, we put immediate supervisor. That could be an assistant principal or whomever. In G, again, we put parent permission and only in emergency situations. We also, in that one, adjusted the MySpace to Instagram. And then down, staff members are prohibited from electronically transmitting any personal identifiable image, including video, for photographs, streaming video, email, text messages to the use of online networks or applications such as, and now applications is put in there. I don't recall what the word was in before, but we added that. The other one, classified staff, we added some additional language in F, which is the same as the others, parent permission. We also added Instagram, but in this one we did state, because this goes to coaching. In a lot of cases, coaches communicate with the kids through group meets and other ways. It says the exception is when communication is directly related to the curricular matters or core curricular event or activity with prior approval of the principal. So this is making the principal aware that you are communicating with the students through that medium. The principal probably should be on there to monitor what goes on. But nowadays in sports, a lot of sports, the coaches send out group texts for everybody to know when practice is, when practice is not. So this was all the committee. Cheryl Henderson was on the committee, Pam, Barnes was on the committee, and we vetted and went through each one and see what was needed. So these are the recommendations that we're bringing to the board.
I got a few things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number one, 3213, you need to remove under J, MySpace, and you need to add Instagram. That's on J. 4213,
Which one? I thought she did it.
no.
Oh, okay, we worked out my space, yeah.
4213I, remove MySpace and add Instagram.
Sure, you- Mrs. Elba?
Let's stay in order.
Yeah.
Those were edits that we've caught.
Yeah, the red is supposed to be marked
Okay,
out. I'm
once
sorry.
again, can I finish my statement? Because not only does my email say it, but so does these papers. So the email that came out from Ms. Lockett about these policies, I went through them all. And you didn't see the email? Oh, she sent, okay, well, she sent two emails.
And you responded?
No, I didn't respond to them, no.
Oh, so I thought you said you, okay.
She's just
No.
asking to finish what she was saying.
No,
Go
you,
ahead.
the red, okay.
So, are you following me?
I'm following you.
Okay, thank you, as long as you follow me.
Mhm.
Okay, 4213, I, remove MySpace and add Instagram.
Yep,
1613, the same thing. That's under H.
yep. got it.
Okay.
Under eight.
Because,
Yeah, I see it.
because those are not
there.
corrected.
You're right.
So, and the other thing was, where you have under classified about the texting, most coaches are supposed to be certified, correct? They're teachers. Most of them are teachers. You have a few that are classified. You have a few that don't even work for the district at all. So,
Yeah, I would say at this time, it's the opposite. Normally, it is more teachers. At this time, the opposite, but I think we should add it to
you
both.
should add the texting and all of that to both, because you do have a combination of people who don't work in the district, you do have teachers, and you do have classified.
So I have a quick question, Michelle. Is that gonna go under I or J?
It'll
on-
go under I.
I, okay,
It'll go under I.
okay.
May I make a recommendation before
Yes,
you guys
ma'am.
make all these changes? Because for me, you know, it's almost like we're limiting ourselves with these particular social media, avenues, so couldn't we, instead of saying and/or, just say to include but not limited to? That way we don't have to do all this marking out. We can list MySpace, Instagram. I don't
Well,
use
MySpace
that.
doesn't exist.
I don't know. I don't use
Okay.
it.
Yeah,
So
I was just
MySpace
waiting
doesn't
for
exist.
everybody
To
to speak.
include, but not limited to, and then take out my stuff.
Take it, MySpace no longer exists.
Because it-
It hasn't existed for a
A
while.
long time. Yeah, that
I
was,
got it.
yeah, that was the same
And,
comment I was
I mean,
gonna
because if that's the case, then you need to add Snapchat, because
Right.
Snapchat is used.
Well, yeah.
And so if you're talking that, then that needs to be added as well.
So I think we can add Snapchat, but include the language you put in
I
there.
think that if
To
you
include
include
and
the
not limited
language
to.
that I use, because they're always coming out with
So
something.
new.
They've got TiVo or Tico now
Yeah.
or something. So I would just say to include but not limited to, and list.
What we got.
The main
If we're
ones.
gonna add Snapchat, 'cause that's big, and
That's a
popular
big
now.
one.
Right, and I was gonna actually bring up that point as well, because there are other social media sites that are not privy to us as adults that the kids are using.
You just named one, 'cause I have never heard of
I
one.
have it on my phone.
And, we need to make sure it covers all of it.
All right.
'Cause it's a lot more going on in the social media space than what's listed here right
All
now.
right, we're gonna add all of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, but I'm aware of the
Okay,
kid chats.
I got you. So we're gonna add to include but not limited to. We're gonna mark out MySpace. We're gonna add Snapchat. We're gonna move the texting thing to the professional staff also.
And I have a question about the texting. I know you said with prior approval of principal, but when you were talking, you said it might be smart to have a principal. I think we should just go ahead and add that in there, because that way the building principal can kind of keep an eye on what's being said in the group text.
All right.
That's just my opinion, other thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. I think the principal or athletic director,
Somebody.
yeah, one of the two should be included so they're aware. So I'll add that.
Yeah, some kind of mechanism to make sure that everybody is aware.
Okay, we'll have this ready for the next meeting too, for the first reading.
Can
We'll make
you
this
send it
done.
out to us before the meeting to review it?
Yeah, we'll have this done by Friday.
I have one final question, and I want to thank you and your team for putting this
Yes.
together. I know you mentioned the issue in the fall, but there's been so many other issues. If you look at some of the things that they've listed, staff members driving students, letting students use the car, texting, and they might think that what they're doing is helping the student, but there's still a protocol that needs to be followed. So I want to thank you for doing that. My question to you, Mr. Jolly, is how, because I think this is an important one that has to be communicated,
Right.
effectively communicated. How are you going to make sure that this information is effectively communicated to your entire staff? They all need to know.
Right, so once the board approves it, I will, have each school do it during their faculty meetings. We'll have 4 more for the remainder of the year, 2 per month. So they will, do that. Then I will, have the business department in his meetings with his supervisors, disseminate the information so that it gets down, to the workers. We'll do sign-in sheets and we'll be able to provide them to the board.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Thank you.
And there's a plan for those staff who don't work for the district, correct?
Right, so
There's-
that's
okay.
the athletic department. And we can make that part of the onboard process when a person gets hired as a coach.
In general.
Yes.
Onboarding process for new employees, might be something that you consider as
Yeah,
well.
that's a good idea. But yeah, the athletic coaches, part of their meetings have to be part of that, so let me get that. Thank you. Okay, I appreciate the feedback.
Good conversation. Two, was there anything else on those three?
I don't think so.
Okay. I know that we are all aware of the marijuana legislation that's somewhat passed for medical marijuana, has not passed for legal use of marijuana, but I do know some districts are beginning to think through and talk through policies to address the use of medical marijuana in the districts with students and staff. The challenge, though, it has not been approved by the state. So where the district is saying, yeah, we may have policies to address it, the state has not said yes yet. So we're just trying to get out ahead of the game and begin the discussions. Mimi, I know you spoke with Joe.
I spoke with Joe, and OSBA even has language on their website about it. Basically, what they're saying is that since it has not been passed as federal law to legalize marijuana, it's just for medicinal purposes, they're not establishing any policy, and they're recommending that boards of education work with their own legal departments if they think it's something that might need to be addressed. And I can see where sooner rather than later, it's gonna be something that we're gonna need to address. Some of the challenges are, I'm just gonna, pick a bus driver, that he or she has a medical condition, but they're allowed to drive the bus, under the influence because they've got this doctor's excuse, but they get into an accident. What happens? So there's a lot of implications, a lot of things that would need to be considered. Some districts have said that they would approve it, but say, for instance, for a student, they gotta go off grounds to take it.
Right.
Staff members have to go off ground to, take their medicinal marijuana. So there's a lot of things to think about, but I do think that it's important for us as a board to start maybe doing some research on the topic of medical marijuana and try to address something before, get ahead of it, before we've got employees or parents coming to us because they would like their child to use it. So I don't know what that
So-
looks like, if we want to do a committee or how you guys even feel about it. So that's kind of what I've learned about it. There's plenty of stuff online, and Ennis and Britton, they actually they've got a school law review newsletter that they put out, and this was done just recently, and they've got a pretty big article on medical marijuana. So if you would like me to pull it down and send it to you, I can. It was done in September of 2018.
Can you share it with us?
Yep. I sure can.
So, Michelle,
So, I attended the Advocacy Institute, and there was a lawyer there, and while it's not federally passed, it is state passed. And they did provide sample policies for medical marijuana and who can administer it to students and how it can be administered and the documentation required. So it is it is passed statewide. We were told that we have the information, so I'm just putting that out there.
When you say we, you're referring to who? We, the people that were at the conference, or we as board members?
At the conference. That was at the
So
conference.
how would we get a copy of the policy language that's already out there? How can we get that? Because again, I spoke to OSBA and Neola, and they don't have anything.
So, I don't have the lady's contact information, I didn't bring it, but, I'll look for it through my packet, and I'll give it to you. Because if we're gonna establish a policy on medical marijuana, they also recommended starting one on vaping,
Right. That
So-
was- Yep.
because that is an issue for students, and they did give a sample of that as well.
So you'll just share both, the vaping and the use of medical marijuana?
If I can call.
Is-
I can
is that a
call
yes?
People at the equity, I can call, is that NSBA? I can call NSBA if need be.
Thank you.
Unless you
Thank
want to
you.
do it.
The advocacy, but sure.
Thank you. Is that it?
Yes, that's it. I'll
Thank
give
you.
the
So we'll-
information. You let me know when, I can try to have it to you by the next board meeting.
The next work session? That would be great.
Session with, well, I mean, I can have the paperwork available so that you guys can review it in preparation for the work session.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay,
At the
thank
next,
you.
at the next board meeting?
The next, so I'll do my best to get, policy language to at least give to you guys to review.
Okay.
So that you'll have it in preparation of the work session in April.
Okay, sounds good.
All righty. We're at item 6, board activities timeline review. I wanted to just keep top of mind the items that we said we would talk about. And I do apologize, some of the dates are missing. We said at the March work session, we would continue talking about that call and communication tree. I think this might be something we might carry back with us and carry into the retreat, because communication is going to be part of the conversation on Friday and Saturday. So we could pick that up in the retreat. We've already talked about the conference calendar. We'll put it in a calendar view, and I think each and all of us, as we're out getting information, I will push the Perkins stuff that I get. We'll just try to keep that calendar populated, because there might be other conferences out there that we might want to go to versus the ones we're currently going to. We do need to really plan out and I apologize that August 30th should be with the new member orientation book, not the connection to the community. We do need to begin thinking through our next big community event, the Chat and Chew, whatever we want to call it, see if we can get something planned for the latter part of the school year. So I would ask all board members to come prepared in April. We'll spend some time getting that planned out, and so we can plan it out, have it pretty much buttoned up, and begin getting our communications out about that.
So you said the latter part of the school year?
Yeah,
So, this school year?
this school year. Yeah, try to get one in, because I'm afraid if we go into the summertime, we're gonna lose people. And then we can really focus in May, June on getting ready for the quarterly ones in the 2019-2020 school year. Okay? Okay. We also added item 7. I'd like the board to share work session topics that you guys would like to talk through. I've been capturing the notes, pulling from our notes, from our meetings, making sure I'm capturing what you guys are saying when we're in our meetings and work sessions, but I would really love to hear other things, so this will be our work session, and we can talk about topics across the board. So we will, at the end of every work session, ask if you've got something that you want to talk about, either bring it to the work session, shoot it over to the board by email to make sure we get it on the work session agendas on time. Okay? So that will be a standing item. Dr. Rock, do we have any correspondence? No.
I have a question.
Oh, go right ahead.
What happened to the student concerns that's not on here? Are we not going to discuss that? We're not interested, or, because that was in the email as well.
Oh, well,
Did you not want to hear? Okay, I just want to say it for the record. I just needed it out there because I didn't see it on here. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, can we hear
We-
them
we have
student
to.
concerns? Or can y'all make a motion?
we
hear
have
the
to add, you have to
Oh.
add it to the agenda. Board, can we have a motion on the floor to hear the student concerns that Member Elba wanted to share?
What
Well,
section would that be?
We'll put it right under section 6.3.
3?
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to this board to add student concerns under 6.3.
May I have a second? Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. Can we go into discussion? We're ready to discuss it.
Oh, you asked for a vote, so are we voting, or, are-
You
you
pa-
said a motion, so that means vote, so I'm just
You
confused.
put the motion on the floor, then it's discussed, then we vote. This really isn't something to vote on, but we had to put a motion.
To add it to the agenda.
Call the roll, please, to add it to the agenda.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mrs. Elba,
Yeah.
Mrs. Gator,
Sure, yes.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. The floor is yours.
I'm just bringing up some things. So as I went to read to the high school students, they wanted to talk about their concerns. They weren't really wanting to do the book thing, but we did it anyway. But some of their concerns, Mr. Jolly, just so you know, they did say that they went to their administration there and they weren't trying to hear them. So it wasn't like that it was set out that I want to vent and whatever. They just found an opportunity. But they wanted to know, they had, one of their huge concerns was about some of the kids, one of the students said he was being suspended for tardiness. And no one ever asked him, why was he tardy every day? So then as I looked into our Title IX and funding regarding suspensions, we can't suspend for excessive tardies. So that's a huge concern because the students stated they're late every day because they have to get their siblings to school before they can come to school because their parents work early shift. And when they went to the administration to complain it, to voice their concern, it wasn't an issue for them. They weren't interested in hearing it. So the students felt like I'm being behind because I'm being penalized because I got to get my siblings off. So that was one. Just so you know that they have a huge concern with the dress code because they're being asked to purchase sweatshirts and shirts at the building, but they can't wear them as uniforms. So you know how every time you turn around, somebody's selling a Warrensville sweatshirt or a Warrensville t-shirt. So the kids are buying them because they're told you can wear them as part of the uniform. They wear them and then they're reprimanded because they're saying that that's not part of the uniform. So they feel like that they're just giving money to a cause that doesn't benefit them. So there was a big complaint that the building is cold. And so a lot of them wear hoodies and coats to class. Some teachers allow it, some teachers don't. So there's no consistency. So you may allow it in your first period class, but then in my second period class, I don't allow it, and if you don't take it off, now you're being reprimanded. So that was a concern for them with these uniforms. And then 2 students had mentioned that their families can't afford to purchase. Now, I could have sworn that a few years ago, the first T-shirt or shirt was free for the kids, and then after that, parents paid for them. Or they, at one time, it was suggested, I know when I had spoke to the prior principal, of maybe having what most schools do, a table of old uniforms for kids that are not returning or graduating, and have those kids pick off the table if you can't afford it. So there's a lot of reprimand for stuff that's beyond their control. So that was one of the biggest things, but to me, the suspension is an overall thing, especially when we're receiving Title IX dollars.
Oh, that's small. I do want to speak about the clothes, dress code. I mean, on a case-by-case basis, I know when people are aware that someone can't purchase something, we give them stuff. So, I'd just like to find out who it is, because we'll make sure that every kid who can, I mean, there's been a lot of instances where kids can't purchase things. Our niece, we buy all kinds of stuff for students all the time, so I just need to know who they are so
So-
we can address it.
When talking to, I was talking to some teacher, they said that generally Miss Allen has a system, there's a system Miss Allen has, but if everybody doesn't know of the system Miss Allen has, you can't get the clothes.
Right, and then Ms. Way has a closet full of dress code too. So we do have it, it's just, the kids gotta be aware of where to
Right.
go.
And there has to be consistency.
And then, just on the tardies, I just need to find out who the student is. One of the things about tardies is that when the board, went to full busing for high school, we thought we eliminated a lot of the issues. So on a case-by-case basis, we need to just be aware of these situations, so we can make the accommodations. Because in that situation, that student probably shouldn't have a first period class, but should have, late entry. Because if you have a first period class and you're missing it every day, you're probably gonna fail it. So they should have a late entry, so we need to be aware of that, so that we can accommodate their schedule. So I'll do some research and find out who it is, and we'll go from there. But the rest of them, I'll come back to the board with some information about it.
So the students, I did tell them, I said, you guys need to be your own advocate. I said, it's not about complaining, but it's about being an advocate. I said, and you don't need your entire class, you can have a few. I did encourage them to come to board meetings when they have a concern and they feel that they're not getting anywhere. Some of them said they were coming tonight, but most of them said they were gonna watch it on the YouTube, because that's what they have, and then they don't, because they now don't have a way to get here. Either some is working, some are babysitting, or whatever the case, they're watching their own siblings.
And
So-
I do encourage you, when you see me in the hallway, just put me to the side and share some of your concern.
I would like to, thank you, but I would like to share, concerns such as this need to be addressed in the moment. If the classrooms are cold, or we've got scholars that are unable to afford, and Mr. Jolly and the team don't know, it's very hard waiting until the school board meeting to say, so in my mind, this is something that's critical. So if these are things that we're learning, these need to be brought to the attention of Mr. Jolly immediately, so it can be addressed, because cold classrooms, that's something that can be addressed. The kids need to be noted that they are able to wear the hoodies. It's something that needs to be addressed. I do agree. We do sell a lot of sweatshirts and T-shirts, and we need to figure out how to allow the kids to wear them in school, because that's wasted money if they can only wear them on a Friday night or Saturday night or something like that game. So, but again, I would encourage each of us as board members, when we're hearing these things in the community, please get to Mr. Jolly immediately, sharing a concern so that he can address it. And then what can happen is, once it's been addressed, it can then come to the board in one of his updates. These were findings, if it's critical. But children being cold in class that should have been dealt with immediately. So,
And normally when, like, teachers are cold, we, hear about it, and then we try to address it immediately, because if the kids are cold, the teachers are cold most of the time, so we try to address that. Again, there's probably situations that we're not aware of, that, situation. This is more the reason why we need new buildings, because it's very difficult. This building is, very old, and a lot of things break down consistently.
Well, I was on the new wing, so the new wing should never be cold.
May I say something? Because it's kind of a segue into something that I wanted to bring up as far as discussion at the next work session. And that is on policy number 9130, which deals with public complaints. I'd really like for us to address this. And, yeah, so the policy itself is just, it's telling us what we're always saying. You know, when an individual has a complaint, they need to go through the proper channels. Well, this is telling us what the proper channels are. But how often do parents or students students or community members go on our website and actually look for a policy that's gonna tell them how do they go through the, what are the proper chain of commands. So I would like to add this as for discussion at the next board meeting. The policy for student concerns is 5710, and that one actually refers them back to the one on public complaints. So the two kind of go hand in hand. But just so you know, and I can share this with everyone if you don't mind, what I'm kind of looking at, and this is just a very generic version, is my hope is that we can do something similar to this. Or it could be a paragraph where we're kind of spelling it out for parents and for students. This is what you need to do when you have a complaint.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
I totally agree.
Yeah, so.
So in the 3 classes that I sat in on, I explained to all 3 classes how to go about advocating for themselves with the problems that they have. Their response to me was, we did that up until a certain point and nobody is listening to us. So, it's one thing for adults to sit here at this table and to talk about a policy and the format and how it should be done. But as kids, you can say that, but to them, they feel like when they've tried an avenue and it's not working, they don't have anything else to do. It was just ironic. No one knew that I was coming to read or discuss a book to these students. They just happened to hear it, and then when they introduced, they was like, could you help us? So I hear what you all are saying, but until you put in a situation like that, a lot of stuff is not just black and white, cut and dry. But I hear what you're saying about that, and so maybe if you're talking about a policy, while we're out here doing these handbooks and adding stuff and deleting stuff, parents need to have these in hand, because everybody doesn't have access to a website other than when they're here in school. And these kids don't think about going on, well, what's the policy for today for this? They don't think about that because they don't know stuff about that. So to say one thing and then expect people to do something is 2 different things. So
that was my point, though.
So-
is that they don't go on the website.
because they don't know.
And
They don't know.
So, again, our role as board members is to make sure that people know about policy.
And how do you do
And I
that?
appreciate what you did, trying to help the students out. But even students have a proper chain of command. And so I think that as we review this policy, maybe we need to figure out what that chain of command is.
So-
And figure out a way to share that with them. I don't know all of the
So-
details.
So I'm gonna say this, because it seems like everybody has an answer. So here's my question. If the students are saying, I've done that and nobody's listening and don't wanna hear, what is your suggestion again? I'm missing that.
So I want to know, who have they spoke to? What was the result? What did they do after that? And you've got parents. Did you get your parents involved? Yeah, they need to be able to
So-
advocate for themselves. May I finish?
Oh, okay.
They need to be able to advocate for themselves.
Miss,
But
I'm good.
9 times out of 10, you've got someone else that's in their corner that's going to advocate for them. So they have to let their parents.
So, yes and no. So yes and no to that, because I did ask, and they did say they told the teacher, the principal, the assistant principal, and all of that kind of stuff, and nobody was listening, and they didn't know what else to do. They did say that they told parents, and their parents weren't getting anywhere either. So I would never tell a kid, you're lying, you didn't follow the chain of command. And so I did say, I'm one board member with 1 vote. And every board member only has 1 vote. We can't make a decision, but I did tell them, I said, I'll bring it to a board meeting for those that want to hear. And I did tell them, I'll come back and tell them what the result was. I did tell them that.
So, but there's nothing I'm sorry. go
I
ahead.
think my ask, though, and I think maybe
No.
I wasn't clear, my ask was, that was a critical bit of information that as a board member, I would have gone back and shared that with Mr. Jolly immediately.
Right.
I would not have waited to bring it to a school board meeting, because I hear you. Sometimes the kids, who knows why they're not being listened to? We can't say they are, they aren't. We're not there in the moment. So I can't say one way or the other. I'm just saying as board members, when we hear something like that, we've talked about this, let Mr. Jolly know immediately versus waiting and bringing it to a board meeting. Because I remember, I saw the email come out, and it's something that had he had the details, he could have addressed that day. That's all I'm saying is, when something like that comes, just let him know, so he has an opportunity to address it.
And I agree with you, Tracy. We all have to follow protocol. If we don't follow the protocol, how you expect a child to follow protocol? The first person that I would have contacted would be like Ms. Mitchell said. I would have, and I have done it all in the past. My first call would be to Mr. Jolly. Mr. Jolly looks into it, he called me back. Ms. Moomin, I took care of it. But if you send in an email and you say there's concerns, but you don't list the concerns, or what do you want someone to do if you don't know the concerns? You know, and I have worked over there, and there is rooms that's sometimes very cold. But when I bring it to the attention of the principal, sometimes they move us to another room. But if the person don't know about it, then what do you expect? You know, you get results from action, and if you're not doing anything, then you're not going to get the positive result that we can get. I want our children to be in an environment that they can learn. If they are cold, they're not going to learn because they are not comfortable.
Okay.
And to wait until the school board, like Mimi said, wait until there's a school board meeting when you know there's an issue over there at the high school, let's deal with it, right then and there. Why wait?
Okay, well, some of you are missing the boat of what I'm saying, but Mr. Jolly, I did promise those students that I would follow with them, and you can do whatever you do, but I'm a person that try to keep my word, especially with kids, so I'm just letting you know.
Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll address the situation.
Thank you. Thank you. At this time, board, we need to have a motion to enter into executive session.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to go into executive session to discuss the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of an employee or official, or the investigation of charges of or complaints against an employee, official, licensee, or student, unless the employee, official, licensee, or student requests a public hearing.
May I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. It's been properly moved in second. Good evening, Mr. Merritt. Good evening, Mr. Jolly. Thank you.
Dr. Rocky.
Can we call the roll?
Here, they're right here. Mrs. Gator,
Yes.
Mrs. Moomin,
Yes.
Mrs. Elba,
Yes.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Ms. Mitchell.
Yes. Motion
Dr. Rock.
passes 5-0.
So, Dr. Rock, question. Are you gonna do the